These are live pictures now where we're seeing Donald Tusk, Jean-Claude Juncker. We're expecting them to speak about this. It's been a long night. It's been a long night there. It is local time 2:15 in the morning, and we are hoping to hear a few words from them. Just to remind you, Donald Tusk saying that Theresa May has accepted that deal, that delay to the 31st of October, a day before the new Commission sits. Christian Fraser has had a very long night as well. Christian, we're watching Donald Tusk and Jean-Claude Juncker arrive, so I'm expecting, I'd like to say, that we're expecting to hear from them imminently.
Yeah, they'll be speaking in the next minute or so. They've just walked into the room behind me. It doesn't take them very long to get into position. Of course, what we're looking for are the conditions that are attached to this extension. Donald Tusk has been talking to Theresa May over the last hour. We understand she has accepted the terms of the extension. So let's listen in.
And welcome to the press conference following the special meeting of the European Council on Brexit. Without further ado, I first invite the President of the European Council, Donald Tusk, to take the floor.
Thank you, Ben. Mr. President, dear friends, tonight the European Council decided to grant the United Kingdom a flexible extension of the Article 50 period until the 31st of October. This means an additional 6 months for the UK. During this time, the course of action will be entirely in the UK's hands. It can still ratify the withdrawal agreement, in which case the extension will be terminated. It can also reconsider the whole Brexit strategy. That might lead to changes in the political declaration, but not in the withdrawal agreement. Until the end of this period, the UK will also have the possibility to revoke Article 50 and cancel Brexit altogether. The UK will continue its sincere cooperation as a full member state with all its rights and as a close friend and trusted ally in the future. Let me finish with a message to our British friends. This extension is as flexible as I expected, and a little bit shorter than I expected, but it's still enough to find the best possible solution. Please do not waste this time. Thank you.
Thank you. And now President Juncker of the European Commission.
Oui, bonjour Donald, bonjour mesdames et messieurs. Nous avons eu une réunion, oui, parfois difficile, mais toujours porté par le désir qui était le nôtre de trouver un accord entre les 27 et un accord avec le Royaume-Uni. Je voudrais, d'un point de vue institutionnel, vous dire que la Commission est tout à fait heureuse des résultats obtenus, puisque nous nous sommes mis d'accord sur le fait que de temps à autre, les 27 devraient pouvoir avoir des réunions à 27 sans nos amis britanniques pour préparer le futur cours des choses. On me dit souvent qu'il ne faudrait pas que nous introduisions une différence de statut entre les différents États membres de l'Union européenne. Pas de différence entre un pays qui quitte et les autres pays qui veulent rester.
So you're watching a press conference between Donald Tusk and Jean-Claude Juncker. We're just waiting for some translation of Jean-Claude Juncker. But just to sum up what Donald Tusk was saying there, the European Council President, the extension shorter than he expected. As Katia Adler, our Europe editor, has been saying, it is a bit of a fudge. A halfway house, really, between the French and German sides. Do not waste this time, he said to the UK Parliament. Let's just have a listen in to Jean-Claude Juncker.
I proposed to my colleagues that the Eurogroup be set up. There was great reluctance, the UK, Denmark, Sweden and others. But we did this because we felt that those who needed to manage the single currency together should be able to speak amongst themselves, while obviously ensuring proper continuity with the work of the Council of Ministers, the Ministers of Finance at the time. That's basically what we've done today. We have recalled to our British colleagues that there should be the principle of sincere cooperation between all member states, and we are convinced that the United Kingdom will respect its obligations. In June, when we meet again, we will not be renegotiating amongst ourselves or with the UK the agreement that was reached months ago, because the withdrawal agreement must be respected in its entirety. And we don't want the withdrawal agreement to be called into question, because that would jeopardise the backstop agreement that we have negotiated with our Irish friends. And I'm sure our Irish friends are comforted to see that their wishes and concerns have been taken into account by their friends in the European Union. So there will probably be a European election in the United Kingdom. That may seem a bit odd, but rules are rules, and we must respect European law, and then we will see what happens. I do rather regret the fact that we only talk about Brexit. I read the European press this morning. Brexit, Brexit, Brexit. But President Tusk and I reached an agreement that no one expected with China, and yet there was hardly anything about that in the international press. Well, Le Soir, of course, gave a detailed report. I mean, they did. It's true. After all, Le Soir reports well on things. The Neue Zeitung, which of course is from outside the European Union. Le Soir did report on what I consider to be a historic agreement. But what it proves is that we are over-focused on matters relating to Brexit and insufficiently focused on other matters that we work on. So yes, I'm very happy that an agreement has been reached amongst the 27. I think it was essential to demonstrate that the 27 stand united in their analysis and in their action, and in October we'll see what happens. A meeting, too long a meeting.
Thank you, and the floor is now open for your questions. And I think the first question goes to Chris. Yes, the gentleman to our right.
Thank you, President. It's Chris Morris from BBC. President Tusk, you said the extension was a little shorter than you expected. Isn't it, from your perspective, in some ways the worst of both worlds? Not short enough to really put on the pressure in the UK Parliament to get a deal passed quickly, but not long enough to allow you to set aside Brexit to focus on other things for any useful period of time? And secondly, as you know, Article 50 says nothing, or doesn't rule out multiple extensions. Is there anything in the language agreed today which says October the 31st is the final deadline, or is it possible that come mid to late October we will once again be having a summit like this and working out how much longer we're going to extend again?
I think it's always better to have a piece of something than all of nothing, and which means that in 6 months, more than 6 months and almost 3 weeks, it could be enough for a good solution if there's goodwill and majority for some solutions in London, of course, and in the House of Commons. Generally, I'm satisfied because it's, as you know, not only today's discussion but also our preparations showed that this idea of flexible extension was not so obvious for some of our partners, and this is why I think we have to be maybe not happy but satisfied by this solution. Our intention is to finalize the whole process in October, But and the political intention was clear among the member states that our wish and our hope is that the UK will be ready with the final solution until the end of October. But I am too old to exclude another scenario. I think it's still everything is possible. And the second question was. It's Jean-Claude, maybe.
A hard Brexit without a deal would be a total disaster. Everyone knows that. So we have to do everything to avoid a hard deal. That's what Donald and myself are trying to do. Till now we have been quite successful. I like the decision we have taken tonight because the end date has been fixed on the 31 of October. I have to leave my job on the 1st of November this year, so my guess would be that we will have another night session because if we had, I have to leave the meeting at midnight.
Thank you. And I think, yes, the gentleman to our left was next. Jim.
Thank you. Good morning. Jim Brunsden from the Financial Times. If October is now the deadline, and if, as you have said, President Tusk, the course of affairs is now fully in the UK's hands between now and then, what is the point of this review that's been discussed for June? Why are we having this, and what can take place on that occasion if everything is now in London's hands?
It must be clear. This assessment or review in June is only to update us on the progress when it comes to ratification process and the legal processes in the UK. This June is not for decisions about extension and my intention is not to discuss, but only to inform the member states about the current situation. It's
in June, we are taking stock of what has happened from now to then. It's not a negotiation session. It's not another cliff edge we would insert in the normal program, as far as our programs are normal. They are not, but we don't have the intention to negotiate in June. The real moment, the vital moment of decision is October. In June we are taking stock, preparing the meeting we'll have later on in October.
Yeah. June is not a cliff edge or a moment to take new decisions. It must be clear.
Thank you, and we'll take one last question. Yes, the gentleman here in the middle.
Nikos Chrysoloras from Bloomberg News. Can I ask you to elaborate on paragraphs 7 and 8 of today's decision? What do you expect from the UK? What do you mean by sincere cooperation? Do you expect the UK to not participate, for example, in the votes for high-level appointments in June? What exactly is it that you expect? And the second question, if I may, given the differences today over the length of extension, would you insist that the EU unity of the 287 still holds, or did France go rogue today?
Sincere cooperation means sincere cooperation, and we have only good experiences with Theresa May's government when it comes to their loyalty to our rules and principles here in Brussels. And there's no any kind of intention to establish a new format for member state under Article 50, and of course the United Kingdom is and will remain during the whole process a full member of the European Union, no doubt, with all the obligations, but also with all the rights, and especially with voting rights, no doubts. But our intention was to have some, political guarantees and declarations that the UK will not use any kind of political blockings or tricks to be destructive or to stop our work or to use this possibility as a political instrument to impose something. And I think I really trust what Theresa May declared today, and I have no doubts that this term, sincere cooperation, is treated seriously.
The reference to sincere cooperation is a reference to a basic principle of the treaties, which are governing our living together. And I trust Theresa May that the United Kingdom will not step away from the treaty obligation. They have to cooperate with the other member states in a sincere, loyal way. I know that in parts of Europe, sometimes in Britain too, there is this idea that Britain could block in the next coming years decisions of the European Union. We had heard voices coming from Britain that Britain wants to be a very difficult partner of the others. That's nothing new. The other point is that we should de-dramatize this issue, because the next big decisions we have to take, appointment of the President of the European Council, of the one of the European Commission, and others, can be dealt with qualified majority. Even trade treaties have to be dealt with and can be dealt with and must be dealt with, if necessary, by qualified majority voting. So the possibilities for Britain to block decisions are very, very limited. So I wanted just to add this to the remarks of the President.
And the second question on EU27 unity.
We are united enough to have a common conclusions, and this is unity doesn't mean that we are always, all 27 or 28 member states on the same or identical position, but unity in our case means that we are always able to find a compromise, and this was that case.
We'll have a Brexit with a deal. I would have preferred a deal without Brexit.
It's still much easier to build majority here, or even unity, than in the House of Commons, as you know.
I'm repeating myself by saying that the Sphinx is an open book by comparison to the British Parliament.
Thank you. This concludes the press conference. Good night.
There you have it, the thoughts of Jean-Claude Juncker, the European Commission President, and the European Council President Donald Tusk, bringing to an end a very long evening here in Brussels. A disagreement among the 27 over how long this extension should be. And in the end, what we've probably got here is a fudge that probably suits all sides but doesn't really satisfy anybody in particular. A couple of things to pull out of that press conference. First and foremost, that the date in June will only be an occasion or a staging post to review the progress that has taken place in Westminster. Donald Tusk said it's entirely up to the UK side how they proceed and how they deal with the withdrawal agreement. They can either ratify, they could leave the extension early, they could rethink their Brexit strategy if they want, they can revoke Article 50. They have the time to do that up to October 31st. He dodged a question as to whether this is the final extension or whether it can be renewed. Now, under the terms of Article 50, as we've been discussing this evening, if there is unanimity among the 28, they can keep rolling this forward. But obviously, the frustration is going to grow as and when they get closer to October if there's been no progress in the UK Parliament. The other thing that we heard several times was this description of sincere cooperation. You may be aware that the likes of Jacob Rees-Mogg, one of the Eurosceptics on the Conservative benches in the House of Commons, has said that if the UK was kept in the European Union against the will of some of the Eurosceptics, then perhaps the next Prime Minister would prove to be a difficult customer and would block some of the decisions that the European Union wanted to take. Jean-Claude Juncker said we've had a very good experience with the Theresa May government. They don't think that they're going to act like a truculent partner. There's no intention there to do that, he said. They expect the UK side to uphold the rules. And in the meantime, up until October the 31st, they will maintain all the rights that they have as members of the European Union.